Welcome to our podcast, Disability Warriors, The Download, powered by Liner Legal, your disability warriors, fighting for dignity, justice, and the benefits that you deserve. Each episode, we bring you powerful stories, real legal insight, and everything you need to feel informed, supported, and never alone. Whether you're navigating the complex disability process yourself, supporting a loved one, or just want to understand the system a little better, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit follow now so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to take the next step, head to our website at linerlegal.com to schedule your free case review.
Because your voice matters.
Your fight matters.
And we're with you every step of the way. Let's dive in.
Let me paint this picture for you. There's a national championship. It's called the U.S. Adaptive Open of Golf. Players from all over the country are competing for a limited number of spots through qualifying events, pressure rounds, and a format that cuts the field down fast. And right now, my guest is trying to get there himself. Ashley Tindle has one arm, and he's giving himself just a few weeks to try to qualify for one of the most competitive adaptive golf events in the country. There's no long runway here. There's no guarantees, just a deadline. And a decision that he made to go all in on this. He walked away from a stable and long-time career, stepping into something completely new, and he said, I'm going to take a shot at this. He's not doing it for attention. He's doing it so kids growing up watching what it looks like can grow up watching what it looks like to chase something hard. This is a conversation about risk, pressure, and what happens when you stop waiting and actually go for it. Ashley, if someone is hearing your story for the first time, first of all, welcome to the pod, man. I'm so happy to have you here.
Happy to be here, buddy.
If somebody's hearing your story for the first time, what should they understand about you right away?
Well, I would imagine that the first thing I would say is that you have to know what kind of drive I have been living with since the day I was able to speak. I've been a part of competitive sports my entire life, and I feel as if it has driven me to exceed at very high levels in everything that I've done. And it's a premise that's been inside of me since I was a little kid. I think I've discussed at times where my mother said, I was kind of born with a ball for a brain, and I've kind of taken to that over the years and dedicated myself to doing my very best physically, mentally, and quite honestly, just given my heart and soul to the sports that I have proceeded to be good at, which was basketball, tennis, and now this excursion into golf. It's taken a lot of tenacity, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of fight. And that last word, fight, is probably one of the things that I would mostly describe myself having. Is I just have a lot of fight inside me. And the older I get, you would think that they would kind of decel a little bit, but it hasn't. In fact, it's kind of grown over the last 5 to 7 years, when my passion for golf has kind of really grown to a level where I feel like I want to go compete against some of these other limb deficient guys, and not only that, but the lower limb deficient guys, all of them, just to see where I can place myself in the world rankings.
It sounds like you've always been wired this way. But if we were to go back and look at like the various chapters of your life, childhood, I'm going to ask you more about your history as an athlete, through different phases of life, but what has always been true about you, no matter what chapter of life you're in?
Wow. The one thing that I would kind of liken is my determination to find ways to succeed. And that determination is built from a very deep-seated need to excel. I've always said, when I was a young man, that, in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, that my whole goal was to beat every single two-armed guy out there that I possibly could. And that fire that I had back then, I mean, it's still with me, but it's not necessarily gauged towards any certain community. It's just more now deeply rooted in me trying to be the very best that I can at pretty much whatever I try to do.
Let's talk about you as an athlete. So,
Okay.
and I want to go back to the beginning, right?
Okay.
So, first of all, actually, before we get to that, let's understand so everybody knows what's the story. Were you born with one arm? I mean, let's put this out there so people understand your journey a little
Sure.
bit.
There's actually a really funny story that actually starts this all off. So it was a congenital birth defect. And we have my mom and dad, when I was really young, they went to different doctors to try to find a reason why it was, but there was no specific reason given. My dad, when I was born, and this was obviously back in the day where there were no cell phones. So, at the hospital, he was so excited. He had a baby boy, and he took his quarters out and started making pay phone calls to, the aunts and the uncles, and, hey, we got a healthy baby boy. And he did 45 minutes of these phone calls on this pay phone. And then he goes back in and they hand them to him and they go, well, he has a birth defect. So he ended up having to go back and make all those phone calls again and just alert everybody that, okay, well, he's healthy, but there's just a little bit of a nuance here that we have to kind of talk about. But yeah, it was a congenital birth defect.
Okay. And how did that affect you as a child? Not in sports, just tell us about what that was like for you growing up. Did it, fuel you in any particular way?
Yes. I mean, at the beginning, there were definitely stages as I was, growing up. When I was born in Houston, I ended up having a pretty strong friend group up until I was about 8 years old. And then we ended up moving to Denver. And I think that was the position when I moved to Denver, when I didn't know anybody and I was kind of thrust into a situation for the first time of being uncomfortable with my surroundings, because everybody was, I've always been stared at every day of my life everybody. Yeah. There's,
that's because you're handsome, Ashley.
Well, thank you, Michael. We could go into that
people
further.
Stare at me
like.
too.
The looks and the around fifth grade, it definitely got to a point to where I really had to focus on me and not focus on the outward energies that were, coming at me, the names that were being called. And there was a lot of, that stuff going on, but, I just tried to do my very best to, say it's going to be okay. And I think that's really when the fuel for wanting to become really good at all of these athletics began.
So one thing that I talk a lot about in different interviews and even in a lot of the content that we put out just internally in my office is I talk about something that's diffability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people look at somebody who's different
Mm-hmm.
and they use the word disabled, which literally means you lack ability.
Right.
But it sounds like you're like me in recognizing that maybe having a difference doesn't mean you lack ability. It just means you have different abilities than other people. How do you think it's been an advantage to you in any way to
absolutely and I've been asked over my career of interviews through my things that I've achieved is, do you think you would have been better if you would have had two fully developed arms? And my answer has been categorically no. I think that the intrinsic motivation that I derived from having to work so hard to just simply master skill sets like catching a ball, we're talking the basic fundamentals, just took every ounce of my focus that I could. And it really did give me a opportunity to find what's necessary in sports specifically. And to be honest with you, life in general, when you're trying to, focus on your career or have kids or whatever, you need to have the ability to have specific focal opportunities to master skills. And I mean, there's a million stories that I could tell you that, I've had to go through to just achieve at the basic level. And then from there, grow higher and higher off of it.
Did you have any specific role models athletically when you were a child?
That's a good question. So Jim Abbott comes to mind. He was the first one.
Go Blue!
Hey,
I was hoping you were going to say him.
I thought you might like that. I
Michigan
thought about
baseball.
that the other day.
Yeah.
But so when he was at Michigan, he was definitely one of my go-tos. And I hate to admit this straight to you 2 days after a national championship, but I was a huge Michigan fan as a kid, just because of Jim Abbott and the Fab Five and the whole thing. But Jim Abbott was one. And then I read a book. I might fail on his last name. His last name is Gray. He played for I want to say the Cleveland Browns baseball organization way back in the 40s. And he was a pitcher. He had no arm whatsoever. And I don't know if you've seen it, but this limb is definitely deformed and comes through no elbow or no wrist movement or any of that kind of stuff. But Jim Abbott was the one that I would say I reached out to and watched, and definitely watched him grow when he was with the Yankees.
Did you ever develop any sort of relationship with him as athletes?
He reached out to me one time after I graduated, when I went all-state basketball. He reached out to me, and to be honest with you, I had a lot of people reach out to me, but that was the one that really meant something to me, that somebody took notice of just this high school kid in Colorado.
That's cool. And this is a perfect segue into telling us a little bit about your athletic career. So
okay.
I assume you start, we'll get to high school, but let's rewind even before then. I mean, you mentioned you were an all-state basketball player, but did you start in sports early on as a child? Did you ever think that, you tell us about that journey? Tell us about the origin story.
Well, I'll start with this is my mom put a tennis racket in my hand when I was 4. Okay. And my dad has been teaching and made me play baseball from the day that I was able to walk. And so I remember very specifically in the backyard, we had in Houston, we had these huge elm trees, and my dad rigged this huge string, from this limb. And it was probably, in my mind, it might as well be 7 stories tall, but I'm sure it wasn't. But he rigged it, he drilled a hole through a baseball, tied it on there, and that baseball would sit right at my contact point level. And I would sit out in the backyard and hit dingers off of that tree. And I tried to get the ball to go up so it would loop around, and I couldn't do it. I was only 4 or 5 years old, but that was my first experience into just sport in general. But my first real excursion into baseball was when I was 7, and I played for a 10-year-old all-star team in Houston, and I was the starting first baseman. And it was a scene. I was 7 years old. I was much younger than everybody else. And baseball was very, very important in Houston back in those days. I'm sure it still is. But it was my catapult into the sport. And I remember all these kids really being very welcoming to me. And I was so nervous about it. But they saw that, my on base percentage was through the roof. And I was so fast at that age until I grew. That it kind of blossomed from baseball. The speed then translated to track and field that I did. I was a sprinter as a young man. And then that just kind of transitioned into basketball. And it just grew. And any sport you gave me an opportunity to play, I was all for it.
Now, with each of these different sports that you were trying, early on, did you almost have to teach yourself a unique, different skill set from other players? What was it like for your coaches working with you?
Well, in baseball specifically, it was trying because, if you imagine, being a first baseman, you obviously have to have glove skills that are really, really good. And I was also a pitcher at the time. So what I would have to do, and I'll try to give you a little bit of leverage here, I would have to tuck the glove under here and hold it. And then as soon as I pitched or I threw it from first base to wherever, I would immediately have to curl it onto my hand like that. And so the big thing for the coaches back then it was kind of crazy. They went through all kinds of adaptive opportunities to try to feed me a glove that they thought would be more efficient than just a regular glove. And I just looked at them. I'm like, no, I got this, and I just turned and I would just work on it and work on it and work on it. And it took some time, but I got to a point to where, you couldn't even tell, it was less than half a second that I could just turn it and put it on a dime to home base if I needed to.
So other kids, they'd show up to baseball practice and they would just go home. And I'm imagining you're sitting there, you're practicing reflexes that, other young athletes don't even need to, just to be able to try and get on the field.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, my dad was a young man when they had me. I think he was only 21. And he had just an amazing amount of energy and patience with me just to spend extra time and just feed my fuel for all of that. And if I asked him to stay after practice, he would do it. We would go home and we would play until it was completely pitch black, dark outside. It's the story of most really good athletes where it's like, yeah. I had a dad that was willing to do what I wanted to do, and that definitely was the passion that I kind of grew from. That. It was my dad said, yep, let's do it. And I was like, I'm all in.
So this is a conversation that, a lot of young athletes have eventually. So it sounded like you started off, you're playing a huge variety of sport.
Yep.
Did you eventually become hyper-focused? You mentioned you were an all-state basketball player. Did you continue to play these other sports?
Well, if we're fast forwarding to the high school years, yes. I was a very seasonal all sport athlete. It was, it was baseball season, it was basketball season, it was tennis season was small, and then track and field and all that stuff. But I think right around 7th grade was the time that I became 110% focused on basketball. I wanted to go to every basketball camp that I could. I played in, all the competitive, I'm failing to come up with the name for the junior basketball leagues, but all
AAU?
AAU. Thank you. It was just hyper focused on basketball for quite a while. Tennis was more of a, I'm going to go play tennis just to relax,
Yeah.
And then as I got older, that became more and more prevalent in my life.
So let's talk about that period where you're specializing on basketball. Okay. So I assume that's high school and that happens. Mm-hmm. First of all, what were some of the, if somebody were to be watching you on the court, what are some of the adaptations that you would have to make? What were, you told us about baseball and how there was the skill of switching the glove that you had to really hyper focus and spend extra time on. With basketball, were there additional skills that you had to develop or make yourself great at?
Way more difficult. And yes, is the answer. I've told this story numerous times, and it's something that I'm very proud of. When I was able to actually drive, and when I was 16, I had a paper route, early in the mornings, the 3:00 a.m. wake up call. And I would do the 240 papers that I had to do before 5:30. And then I would come home and scarf down, an entire box of Eggos. And then I would go to the gym at about 5:45 and the janitor would be there and we knew each other very well. And I would go into the basement for the auxiliary gym and the lights would be off. And all I would do is I would work on right-handed dribbling for 20 to 30 minutes in the dark. And then I would throw it against the wall and learn how to pass right-handed and catch right-handed. So I would keep my left arm behind my back and I would do it and I would fail miserably over and over and over. But I did that for a series of almost 2.5 years on top of numerous other things I was working on at the time. Weightlifting became a very important part at that age for me, but just to develop enough strength in this shoulder and this arm so that I could then, maneuver people off of me because they were guarding me if you can imagine it, people were guarding me completely to the left side of my body. And so I worked on crossovers, behind the back, stuff. And there's a lot of videotape out there of me doing around the back layups, around players. And I remember so many times that these guys that grew up playing against me, I mean, their faces would just go white with frustration at times when they would try to play me to the left, and I would just take 2 dribbles to the right and go to the rack and take them straight up to the rim, and they were just completely befuddled. And the coaches too, at times there was numerous times where the coaches were like, get on his left side. And as soon as they did that, I just kind of smiled at them. And it was my time to shine, in those moments after working so hard to adapt to how to play against really athletic guys that were going to try to take advantage of my limb deficiency, if you will.
So did you train it so that you were able to use your right arm
Absolutely.
for elements of the game?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what were you able to do with your right arm?
Well, ball handle, and pass, I mean, the passing agent was probably the most important because I was a 2 guard. So I camped out on the 3-point line. That was my specialty. It was 3-pointers. And, when guys would come up and get in my face, I had to, especially when they were playing me out the left, I had to be efficient to be able to make, pass off of back cuts or flash cuts or whatever you needed to do. And if you can't execute that stuff, you can't play, big school top 10 basketball. You just can't. And that became one of the goals. And again, I mean, I know I'm going to go back to this numerous times, but my dad was in the gym with me. Besides those morning workouts, my dad was in the gym with me 8 to 10 o'clock at night, almost every night. Even after 2 hours of practice and 2 hours of training in the morning, we would go back and we would just work on all of these little fundamentals that would make me navigate a winning ability, if you will.
I love that. So, you were talking about how guys would try to guard you and force you to your left because they thought that would be a struggle for you. Were there ever opponents who, I don't say refused to play against you, but you felt like were going soft on you because they didn't know what to do?
I could tell you a story. It's a little risque, if you will, because I was in 8th grade, but I'll give it to you. Okay.
This is an NC-17 podcast.
Okay, good. So there's nothing profane about it. It's just a little childish, but to your end, this is a good point. So we were playing in one of the bigger state tournaments, and it was at Pomona High School. And my good buddy, who was a teammate at the time, his name was Mike Merrill. Him and I were in the auxiliary gym practicing before this game in the semifinals. Okay. And the other team walks in, and this was from an out-of-state team. Okay. So they had no idea who I was. And as soon as they walked into the gym, I mean, eyes, arm, I mean, they're all like, what is going on? And they wouldn't stop. You could hear them talking and chatter, the same crap that always, kind of came my way. And Mike goes, hey, Ashley, did that contagious infection on your arm clear up yet? And I looked at him and I'm like, so I started holding my arm and like shaking it a little bit and playing to the crowd. And I'm like, no, it's still a problem, but I mean, it's not really contagious, but I mean, you don't want to touch it too much, And in the first half, I had 28 points. Okay. And all layups, nobody would touch me. And their coach, it was livid. And my dad was my coach at the time. And at halftime, he's like, what did you guys say to these guys? And I heard the coach at halftime saying, why won't you guard that guy? I'm like, coach, his arm has got contagions on it. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Guard the kid. He wouldn't be out here if it was contagious. So there were.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Yes. That's hilarious. Yeah. But so, I mean, Anna, that's kind of an exceptional story.
Yeah.
Day to day,
yeah.
People, I imagine, especially, you made it to a level where you were named an all-state player in basketball. You developed a reputation where you kind of maybe went from people trying to figure out what was going on to gunning for you a little bit.
No doubt
trying
about
to be the person who stopped you.
No, I mean, at certain times, against some of the better defensive teams, I mean, they would definitely run box and ones with me. I mean, I wouldn't I mean, I had guys face guarding me straight up. So there were plays that we had where I was running through 4 different screens just to touch the ball, and so it got to that point. I mean, my field goal percentage in high school was, I want to say from 3-point line, I was like 42% or something like that. And so it definitely got to that point, and I mean, it was there's so many nuances and so many things I could talk about with regards to the day-to-day ways people acted towards me. I mean, at certain high schools, we would have packed houses of 6,000 people. And when I would get introduced at the beginning, there would be chants of fork, like fork, like, because the hand looks like a fork, and I would just smile at them knowing that I'm about to light you up, and it was an attitude that I had to have of hyper confidence, because if you don't in that situation, especially with what I was dealing with, with the arm being as it was, is you really have to have a blinders on attitude constantly when you're in those kinds of situations.
Awesome. So, we've kind of covered already how you weren't just a casual player. I mean, very competitive, named to an all-state team in Colorado. Tell us how your athletic career continued after high school.
So my first year in college, I got a full ride scholarship to go play at a junior college in Sterling, Colorado, called Northeastern Junior College. And that was by far and away the best basketball I've ever seen. I played against guys like Grandma. I don't know if you remember Grandma Ma, Larry Johnson from UNLV. I played against him, and he was at a JUCO at the time before he transferred. And half my team ended up going and playing at major Division I schools. It was a eye-opening experience for me, and it was a great experience. And it got to the point to where, I mean, I could play. There's no doubt about it. But when you get to that level, we're playing against guys that are even possibly challenging to get drafted in the NBA at one point. The athleticism levels that they had and their hand skills definitely started to expose, the ball handling on my side. I mean, I was still doing good and I could still score, when I was open, but the ball handling coming up and down the court became just a little bit of an issue. And so after I realized that I wasn't going to achieve my goal of, to be honest with you, playing professional basketball, that was my initial goal. And I kind of felt that. Then I decided to focus on my degree and then go get my educational degree. And funny enough, once I was on campus at the University of Northern Colorado, once I transferred, first day I was on campus, I'm walking to my English class, and this guy goes, "Ashley Tindle," and I go, "Yeah." And he was an older gentleman. And he goes, "You play tennis, don't you?" And I go, "I haven't played tennis for 2 years." And he goes, "Well, I'm the tennis coach here at the UNC. Do you want to come out and try out for the team?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And I mean, not being a part of the team, like, that was kind of bone crushing to me, because that's all I had ever done my entire life. Yeah. So when he gave me that opportunity, I'm like, absolutely, I'll come. And so that afternoon I went out and tried out for the team, and I played their number 2 singles player and beat him like 2-2. And the guy goes, "I'll give you a scholarship right now." And I said, "I'll take it." And so that ended up being, crazy enough, that became a catalyst to the next 15 years of my life, as I played tennis for UNC for 3 years, and then ended up going and playing, semi-professional tennis after that. And then it kind of led to my career into being a professional tennis instructor.
Yeah. And I mean, we're cutting a lot of corners in there, but I think you're also kind of taking us up to the present a little bit. So, I mean, were a tennis pro for how many years?
So I was a high performance coach for almost 25 years. I've been a tennis instructor for about 32 years. I started when I was 16. That was my summer job. And so I played somewhat semi-professionally. I tried to go play futures events. I moved down to Georgia with my parents when I was a young man and after I graduated, to save money, obviously. And so I would go down to Florida and play in futures events, and I could win a couple of rounds, but it became really evident really quickly that those guys from Colombia that have legs the size of that elm tree that I used to play baseball with, it was exceedingly difficult to play at the highest level of tennis because those guys have been playing since the day they got out of a chair. So,
Right.
But it definitely led to a really fun, active tennis career. Made it to numerous Colorado State Open semifinals and finals. Never won one, but it got very close a couple of different times.
Golf.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of like the theme of the next chapter of your story here.
Yes, sir.
Casual golf player, serious golf player. How often are you playing now? But let's go back a year. We'll kind of pivot and tell the story, but tell us about golf in your life.
Okay. Well, if you want to go back a year, so I've tried twice so far to qualify for the U.S. Adaptive Open. And the first time didn't go well. It rained. And if you've ever seen a one-armed guy play in the rain, it's comical. But
sure.
Yeah, but last year missed it by a couple of strokes and played better. And then after last year's miss, something just kind of clicked inside of me where after years of not competing in basketball and tennis, even though I did do some competitions, league play and all that stuff, but never like at the highest level, it just felt like there was a huge void inside of me where I wasn't feeding the competitor that I am. And I needed that. And I felt for the first time last year when I was down in Georgia, trying to qualify for this event, I really felt like this is what I was supposed to do. And this was my next opportunity. So I don't have to just lay down and not do any more competition. And so I came home. I remember I was extremely disappointed because I knew that I was going to miss the cut. And I wrote down in my MacBook, kind of like the old Doogie Howser times back in the day, when he would sit down at the end of his day and write his notes. That was me. And so
I know that music that they would play.
You're like one of the few people that actually know that when I talk about it.
I love that show.
So I wrote down, this is my last shot, and I've kind of and once you put that on, digital paper, it spoke to me and it gave me this motivation to work exceedingly hard, and take it from a recreational level, which it definitely was, for about 10 years, to a level where, I'll be blunt with you. It's like the only time I ever hit a driving range was the small bucket of balls I'd hit to warm up. I never really engaged in actually practicing. And so for this last year, that has been the goal. I haven't played nearly as much, but I have definitely practiced a lot. And I can see the benefits of it. It's night and day. And now that I'm on this mission to hopefully qualify, it's going to be tough. Those guys are all very, very talented golfers. There's no doubt about it. But I have a very large part of me that has confidence in me and my mental state. And I think with golf, you have to have that. And I think the hours that I'm putting in on a daily basis are going to translate to betterment. And hopefully that betterment will lead to a qualification into it. And from there, the sky's the limit.
So let's set up the backstory a little bit. So when you say you're going all in on this now,
yep.
What'd that mean for you? What did you have to give up?
That's a loaded question, Michael. A lot. So I gave up a stable, very good job at a very prominent country club, with a lot of really, really good people. And I've told these people this when I was planning on resigning. I said, I want you to understand, this is like, you were some of the best clients I've ever had in my life. But all of you, when I've told you my story and what I'm trying to do, have said the same thing. It's like, you need to go do this. This is what you were built to do. And it's been, I've been feeling it bubble for a long time. And I just felt like, this time in my life, with blessings and my support from my wife, and the kids at the age that they are now. It was just, the time was right to actually just pursue it and show my kids that, if you really believe in something and you really put your head down and work as hard as you can, that if you got dreams, you can achieve them in this world. But it's going to come at a large risk, financially. It's like I'm looking to get out there and hopefully give myself to the world, and we'll see if there are sponsorship opportunities that come from that, and we'll see what we can make out of it in an inspirational vein with regards to other adaptive athletes and other able-bodied athletes.
So I want to be very specific about what this goal is, because I think we've talked about it vaguely, but I want to put this out there. So
okay.
Exactly what is it that you're chasing right now?
A world ranking, at the very least, a top 5 world ranking in the G4 category of the adaptive community, which is the upper limb deficiency category. I want to go chase the top 5 guys. I think that I've seen them play. I know what it looks like, and I have no doubt in my mind that I can pursue that, and I can push them, and that I can get into a zone where I can play just as well as they can. And that's what's driving this entire mission at this point.
What is the path ahead? What do you have to do to make that happen?
A lot. So the first thing I got to do is treat this opportunity like it is my job. And I have, it's hard to say, but it's only been like 3 weeks where it's like, okay, I quit, my job, and now this is my job, and this is going to do it. And yes, is it risky? Absolutely. But it's also one of those risks that I feel like in my life that I'm absolutely 100% going to just take and run with as much as I possibly can. It's going to take help from my community. It's going to take help from hopefully the corporate world when they realize what kind of talent I have and what kind of message that I would like to try to get out into the world. And beyond that, I think with my coaching skills and my coaching background, I think that I could even give back to the adaptive community in that sense. So there are definitely many different veins to what I could pursue, but I want it to be very clear that this is all being fueled by my competitive nature, and I want to get out there and show these guys that I can do it.
So you and I are having this conversation today on April 8th, 2026. You've been at it full time for 3 weeks now. What's the deadline here? What's the target date?
So the initial deadline is May 24th. That's the U.S. Open qualifier that I'm going to go down to Dallas in Corinth, Texas, and look to go for. It's going to, it's an 18-hole qualifier, which means there's a lot of pressure on just that one day. You have to perform, you can't, and that's good. A lot of that stuff is the mental aspect of the game. I mean, I feel like my game is trending in a direction that is a very exciting direction. There's no doubt about it. A very confident direction as well. And it's different than all those years of playing recreational golf. I was always, good at the game, but this is coming to a point where, I feel like the ability is there, and I just gotta put myself on the line and do my very best to it. One way or the other, qualify or not qualify, that's not going to deter me from chasing my goal for this whatsoever. There's become a huge undergrowth of adaptive opportunities to gain world ranking points, and there are tournaments all throughout the summer and the fall that are an opportunity for me to just get better and more saturated within the competitive golf world. And that is the plan. I'm going to need a little bit of help out there eventually because it is an expensive proposition. But yeah, that's where we're heading.
When it comes to even the qualifier, right? So there's a couple different paths here, but the one that's right in front of you is obviously the goal is to qualify in Dallas. Tell us what that's like. There's multiple sites, there's multiple people qualifying. Give us some sort of idea of what stands in your way here.
Well, there's 8 different sites, and
Okay.
I would say there's probably in the neighborhood of 500 competitors. And that number could fluctuate up or down by 50, I would imagine. But the what stands in my path has nothing to do with the other people, in my opinion. It has everything to do with me, and it has to do with me just understanding that the work that I put in needs to just come to play on that day. And quite honestly, when you show up to these events, it's kind of a different world, Michael. Like, I mean, all of my competitive friends out there, it's a different site. You show up and you have people that are, they have spinal cord injuries and are using, motorized carts to help them get up and down and play the game. And they're looking to try to advance to the seated category. And you have the guys that have prosthetics on their legs and they're amazing talents all throughout it. But regardless of what they're doing, it is more and more about me and making sure that I am focused, mentally ready for the opportunity and the challenge, and just putting my head down. And me and my brother, who's going to be on my side as my caddy, just making sure that 4.5 to 5 hours is as clearly focused as humanly possible.
Where do you feel that you are now compared to where you need to be in 6 weeks?
Well, that's a good question. I think that mentally I'm probably in the best place that I've been in golf in a long time. And I know I keep going back to the mental part of the game, but man, I mean, if you don't have a strong, patient mind in golf, you're gonna fail. It's just the way it works. So I'm working on my daily routine and my daily grind of making sure that every ball has a purpose. And that takes a ton of patience and positivity, and deletion. There is a lot of deletion. I always liken it back to that scene in one of Jim Carrey's favorite movies, deleted, so that I can just make sure that if it's not what I like, that's it. It's gone. And here comes the next opportunity. But I will say, the workouts are going really well. The physical nature of the game feels really good right now. I just want to keep progressing with regards to ball striking, and regards to putting more than anything else, is getting in a really good mental place where I feel like the putting is the best it's ever been from me, because I will honestly say that has been probably the main weakness in my game. It's not a bad weakness. It's just putting is just hard, and it takes a lot of effort to putt extremely well. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
So what is the training like? Like what would we be watching you do for the next 6 weeks?
Well, it's as soon as I drop my kids off, it's straight to the driving range. It's going to be in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 hours every day. And I think the biggest part with me is that I got to be careful with is, the over repetition stuff, can be taxing on the arm. And so, because there is a lot of effort being put in from the left hand. And so I have to make sure that I'm not just going out and banging ball after ball after ball. That's not what I'm doing. It's more about, okay, I'm going to shape this ball this way. I'm going to try to shape it in this way. Am I working on my low flights? Am I working on opening the face on this one? There's a lot of different shot selections that I'm trying to get better at. And I am. And I feel like the range is important, but the number one most important thing for me is the short game work. And that's where I put most of my attention. And that is, the creativity around the greens is one of my favorite parts of golf. And I really do love engaging in, working on the 15-yard, 30-yard, 45-yard shot, heavy rough lies, or really naked bare lies, like, and what type of shot selection I'm going to choose in that situation. So there's a lot going into it. And then I spend at the end of it, it's about an hour of putting, and just really focusing on fundamentals of putting and trying to keep myself real still in those situations.
So, you said that even no matter what happens in Dallas next month, that's not the end of the story for you. That's just like the first milestone, let's call it.
Yep.
Do you feel a sense of urgency right now, though?
Yes, I do. And it's one of the, but it's such a positive urgency, Michael. Like, when you wake up to go to your job on a daily basis after 30 some years of, being a tennis professional, you wake up and it's just another day, and I'm not trying to, downplay my job. I love my job. I love teaching. But when I wake up these days, I'm waking up 2 hours earlier, not on purpose, but I'm waking up 2 hours earlier, popping up. There's a lot of positivity in the way that I'm looking forward towards the day. There's a lot of, I don't want to say hope, but it's more necessity to, get the day going. And I really feel that urgency. Absolutely. And I feel, I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young man either,
Sure.
And I want this platform to grow into something really positive and beneficial for my family, for my community, and quite honestly for me, because it's time for me just to put myself out into the world, because my story is one that, I haven't been reluctant to tell, but as I look back on it, there's so many aspects of, the teaching and the basketball and the baseball and all the stuff that can really make a difference in other people's lives. And I feel like by making a difference in my life, I feel like that message can be hopefully transcendent to other people.
What's been the most humbling part of this experience for you so far?
The difficulty of the game, the difficulty of golf has been the most humbling part of it. And learning how to fail and not let it eat you alive. I feel that golf can find a way to just really get inside your head and make you second guess yourself. And, the way that I think that's a great question. If you go back to when I was playing really high level competitive basketball, I always think about and this is no joke. I think about this all the time when I'm putting, and I'm out there by myself. I got my earbuds in and I'm jamming out to whatever I'm jamming out to. Okay. I feel like I'm on the free throw line and there's 6,000 people screaming at me, and it's time to just allow that all to fade and just focus on one thing at a time. And that is my focal point of where I'm trying to make this ball go. And that is so humbling when you feel like it's not being successful, and you have to just do it time and time again in order to get to a point to where my mind is saying, this is exactly where I want to hit the ball. This is exactly how I need to hit the ball. This is the spot that I'm looking to hit it. And it feels so much to me like those basketball days where it was I guarantee some of your Michigan boys were thinking of this the other night, okay, where it's the 6 phases of the free throw. Find the dot, bend your knees, do what you do, shooting pocket, target, follow through. And and it's like I've lived by those 6 methods on every sport I've ever played. It's like it boils down to that fundamental of mentality. You have got to stay focused and be in the moment and be very in the moment, not thinking about the 6 weeks down the road, but thinking about today. What is today going to do to benefit that goal? But I can't allow myself to think about the tournament at all. Like it's about the process. Okay,
so you've kind of told us about the adaptations that you had to make to play baseball, to play basketball. For somebody who hasn't seen you play before,
Yeah.
what would stand out immediately about watching you play golf?
Tempo is, I mean, I play as a single a lot, just because I just jump on. My friends can't play at that time or whatever. And so I have worked incredibly diligently about tempo. And what's funny is, for 30 years, I've taught nationally ranked level kids, sectionally ranked level kids. And my message to them was always about tempo. And when I started banging balls 15 years ago, my tempo sucked. Like, it was so bad. It was like any other recreational golfer. Everything's quick and you start to get in your head. And so everything goes faster and faster. But now over the last year and a half, 2 years, I have found what tempo means with regards to golf. And to be honest with you, 2 years ago, when I went to my first Adaptive Open qualifier, there was this young man who was autistic, and he was right in front of me in the group in front of me. And I remember, like, my round was over by the 7th hole. It was raining. Like, it was like I was taking triple bogeys. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I found myself watching this kid, and he ended up shooting like a 71 that day. And I watched him, and I was completely in tune with what he was doing. Like, his rhythm was so spectacular, and it motivated me more than you could possibly imagine. Like, and so I've kind of championed that thought process and turned it into what it looks like today.
You've mentioned your family.
Yes, sir.
How much of this goal, how much of the path ahead has to do with them?
Man, it has everything to do with them. I mean, my wife has taken on such a positive vibe towards this very risky platform that I'm trying to create. And she has stayed positive with me and supported me through this. My son is only 7. And he loves this idea because he loves to golf. Like, I mean, he asks me every single weekend, can we go golfing, Dad? Can we go golfing, Dad? And it's not the kind of, can we go golfing, Dad, because the cart girl's going to come around and I get more M&Ms or something like that. It is because he wants to get out there and play. And my daughter is just turned 13, and I just really want to show her, when she's running through this tumultuous time of being a teen and all that kind of stuff. And I want her to see that, again, I said it earlier in the program, is like, I want her to see that if you really put your mind to it, you can do whatever you want in this world. And I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but man, it is what I live my life after. It's no doubt about it.
So the kids understand what you're doing.
They do. They do. And I don't think they understand what kind of risk I'm putting myself into. But at the same time, I don't want to even burden them with that. It's more about just showing them, look, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm hoping, and I'm not even necessarily hoping, because I really believe that even if I make it this year or I don't, I'm going to make it. Like, I have no doubt in my mind, whether it be this year or next year or the year after that. Okay, I will make it into that Adaptive Open, and I'm going to tell them, turn on Golf Channel. There's your dad right there. And I want them to see that. And then eventually, I want to get to the point to where I want them to see that for the 2 days. And then I'm somewhere in the top 10 and they got to fly out to come watch me. That's what I would love to get to at some point. That would be my biggest payoff.
When your kids look at this one day, when they look back on this, what do you hope they say? And I can fragment, about you, about the journey. What are the thoughts that you hope you're imparting to them?
I think that the most important thing I would hope that they would glean from this would be that determination is one of the biggest skill sets in life that can translate to success. If you are determined to put your mind and body and effort into it, eat it, live it, breathe it, then you can truly accomplish it. And I want them to understand that hopefully, eventually, when they get old enough to kind of comprehend it, that this is a process that I've been working on since I was 4 years old. And it was hard. It was really freaking hard. But there was never 1 second of that hard that I even questioned doing it. It was just what I was built and what God put me on this planet to do. And I believe that, and if you put your mind into that determination, I mean, it's lethal, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, those one-arm guys got another one-arm guy coming for them. It's coming.
Now, are you planning on documenting this journey as you go through it? Absolutely.
I mean, I'm hoping to do live stream on TikTok and let them follow me at Ashley Tindle 77 on TikTok, and I'm going to hopefully get enough followers to where they can help provide some sustainable success for me. I'm going to open it up as much as I can to the world and let them see what's going on, and let them see how hard I'm working, and let them see how hard the process really is.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned it, there's a lot of resources that go into this, and I think it's okay if we let the world know that. I mean, hopefully, you'll attract a following on social media. I mean, if you're out there hitting balls and people can actually watch the journey, feel like they're a part of it.
Yes, sir.
Are you looking for sponsors or people to, participate in this journey along with you?
Absolutely. In fact, it's probably going to be the only way I can sustain it. With regards to the sponsors, I'm hoping that, once this platform starts to evolve and get to a point to where those discussions can be had, they're going to find that they're going to be able to sponsor an individual with a lot of integrity, a lot of ability to help promote the adaptive world, not only in golf, but in all the other adaptive sports. And hopefully somebody that can, give back to the community and inspire children to do whatever they want to do. And I mean, I've been coaching for a long time, Michael. And what I do know is that all of those kids, even now that they have kids, and they call me consistently and tell me that the inspiration that I gave them, without significantly saying, here's your inspiration. It was just the path that I gave them and the energy and the positivity that I am. And you can probably feel it from this interview, but it's the positivity that I have inside of me is real. And I believe in anybody that puts their mind to any challenge that they have in front of them. If they're coached the right way, they have a support system that is positive. I believe that you can accomplish just about anything with that kind of attitude.
What does success look like for you over the next several months?
Slow growth, slow sustainable growth. And to be honest with you, and this is just the competitor talking to you now, top tens. I want top tens, and I know that's going to be hard, but I don't really care. I want to get into the top 10, and I want to, of any tournament that I play, I don't care which one it is. And I know that's going to be very difficult, specifically when you talk about, the U.S. Adaptive Open, when you have, all 9 of the categories fighting against one another. But that would be the goal eventually. But again, it's got to be the slow growth, because, you can want all you want, but that's not how you gain success. It's about the slow, hard, focused, practiced approach.
If someone's listening right now and feels stuck, what would you tell them?
Man, I know exactly what that feels like. And I would say the most important thing to do is to talk to somebody and tell them you feel this way, because you've got to get it out. You can't just keep it in and hope that it is just going to get better, because once you put it out into the world, what I have found through my family and through my friends specifically, I have found that the support system that I have to get off my ass and make a change in my life, whether there's risk or not, it's real. You have to put it out there, and you have to say, I don't feel good about what I'm doing anymore. I just feel like I'm just in a constant cyclical motion. And once I kind of got it out there and started having conversations about the way I felt, the productivity towards this next chapter just started to build foundationally, and then the motivation started to really grow. But you need to get it out there. You need to let the universe know that you feel stuck, because the universe will give back to you if you do it the right way.
What didn't I ask you, Ashley? Is there any part of your story, any part of your journey, any part of your goal or mission that we didn't talk about yet that you think people need to hear or understand?
You didn't ask me about my modeling career.
Because it didn't exist.
It didn't
Ashley.
exist. No,
that's the answer I'm going to give people from now on.
We didn't talk a lot about my coaching philosophy and how that has really kind of shaped who I am as a person, and and what that helps me do now, because now, I've been coaching high performance athletes, beginners, all levels of tennis for so long. And in part during that excursion basketball, coaching basketball in that vein, is now I'm coaching myself and listening to that voice that I've been producing to other people for years. And, that positivity that I have to make sure that I'm speaking to myself inside my head with is really important, because, I'm much harder on myself than anybody else, obviously.
Sure.
But that positivity and the way that I coach myself at this point is going to be the lead motivation for success as I go forward. And that positivity and that coaching voice inside here has to stay strong, and it has to stay consistent all the time.
The comment that you made as a joke, I actually want to explore it a little deeper. You made the comment about, you didn't ask me about my modeling career, but let me ask you a real question. Sure. Do you think that success for an athlete requires a little bit of delusion?
Boy, that's a good question. And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, you have to be a little bit delusional about what you can achieve and what you can do. If you were to ask me when I was 12 years old and I'm playing in, AAU ball, and I'm playing against guys that ended up playing for Michigan and Texas and all these guys, I mean, there was a lot of delusion going on there, because I was telling myself at that time that I belonged there. And to be 100% honest with you, I had no business being there. But my dad never, ever let me talk like that. And if I did, I mean, there was going to be some very sturdy words coming my way. And so my dreams of becoming an all-state athlete, and my dreams of becoming like a professional tennis player, and now my dreams of becoming a professional adaptive golfer. I think you have to delude yourself a little bit to really find the dream. And, I've done so much accomplishing in my life, and all of it was probably preluded to being a little delusional about what I can and can't do. But the goals that I set for myself were always that stair-stepping goal. And that led me to achieving the delusional goal.
So it's so fascinating to me because for myself, I mean, I was never a high level athlete the way that you are. You know, I played a little bit of ball in high school and stuff, but certainly nobody was voting me to any all state teams. And there wasn't a career for me in this. But even when I think about business and the success trajectory that my law firm has been on, I'm not faking it anymore, but I feel like I was for a long time, where to even be able to pump myself to think that I could accomplish my goals, it was games, it was lies that I was telling myself, and you have to trick yourself into it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I think that's where people feel stuck, and they kind of, get pulled into their own reality, which isn't leveling them up the way that you need to be a ranked U.S. golfer, to have, the largest law firm in the country in a specific field. And, there's so many parallels there, but.
Well, listen, Michael, I love that parallel, because one thing that I have been blessed enough to do well in my coaching career, is to teach very A-type personalities, a lot of very successful people, and then I can also see the ones that fail, quite honestly. And the ones that I feel like do end up failing are the ones that accept the stuck feeling. And I just have learned, over my lifetime that, acceptance of mediocrity just isn't going to be the path that I'm going to take. I can't, and I won't. And if that's delusional, well, then go ahead and admit me to whatever ward you need to admit me to, my friends.
And give me the room next to you, buddy. Ashley Tindle, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to help you tell your story. Thank you for being an inspiration to so many people, including myself. And I am excited to not only watch you accomplish that goal, but really watch your journey, because you are going to change and improve so many lives along the way. And it is just truly exciting for me to be a spectator. Well,
thank you, Michael. And Michael, I want to thank you personally just for giving me this forum. It's going to be a very, very exciting journey. And I will say this, I promise to give everything I have to it. There's no doubt about it.
I know that. And I think that your past, your history, your present, your future all speaks to that. So
thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Your story matters, and your voice deserves to be heard. Catch you next time on Disability Warriors, The Download, where we fight for dignity, justice, and the benefits that you deserve.